Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Tommy today. Tommy's an individual that I saw a comment from on the YouTube channel and try my best to read through all of those. And he had mentioned that he had an interesting thing happen down there in Webster County, Kentucky. So thankfully, we were able to have a back and forth going on, and was able to invite him on to the show to share what he experienced. So welcome to the show, Tommy. How's it going?
Oh, it's pretty good. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Tommy, I'm excited to have you here, and I would say, feel free. I'm gonna hand things over to you, and feel free to take us back to, when you started experience, or when you had this experience down in Webster County, Kentucky, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, then. Well, as you said in the beginning there, I commented on a YouTube comment from another episode. I believe the episode was 627. It dealt with Kyle, who is also from Webster County. He was in the Clay area, which I am familiar with the Clay area, and he mentioned an old mine, coal mine that had been there. I'm not really familiar where that area is, although I've got a pretty good idea where it is. And he mentioned White Oak area, which I do know where it is. But later on in his account, he spoke of squirrel hunting. And if I'm not mistaken, he said Pool. Pool is in Webster County. And that got my attention, as I have experienced something in the Pool area. This was many years ago. It was about 1978, 1979. There is an area, this is a rural area, and there are thickets and so forth here. A lot of woods. There's a lot of farm ground. There's some logging roads. There's a lot of oil field roads here that are abandoned. And there was this thicket, I guess you could call it, that was on an old abandoned oil field road that a lot of young people used to go back when I was young. And four-wheel drive was a big thing then. People were, trying to see if they could go through mud and stuff. And there was this area was, like I said, it was an oil field road, but it made kind of a cul-de-sac there. And we used to go back there and just hang out. And we'd take girls riding back there, try to scare them, stuff like that. Well, this happened in, excuse me, probably late September, early October, like I said, 1978 and 79. There was some friends of mine. There were 6 of us. We had went back in this area just to goof off. It was late at night, and for one of the very few times that we ever got out of a vehicle and walked up into the woods, one of these individuals that was there, he had an older brother and a brother-in-law who had rabbit hunted on this property before, and they always talked about the footsteps. They talked about that basically they got paced out of woods or ran out of the woods, and they never did know exactly what happened. And a lot of times, as those stories go, we didn't know really whether to believe it or not. But it's one of those things you kind of take with a grain of salt. But anyway, we went up in these woods that night, and we kind of paired up, a left flank, right flank point. We had some flashlights, and we were just walking up through there, kind of exploring around. And we came to a area of the woods. I guess where we were first going into the woods, I guess it was pretty easy going. But we came to an area that was really grown up, which I suppose the area that was easy going had probably been logged out, maybe at one time or another. But we came to this area that was really thick. It was like a wall. And the fellow that I was partnered with, I was on the left flank. We stopped for a minute right there at that heavy growth. And I don't remember if he said this first or if I said this first, because it was a really quiet night. And we said, do you hear that? Do you hear? And we got to listening into the night. And this place is, we're out in the country. We're not near any kind of home. We're not near any kind of town or anything. And we both could hear this. It sounded just like little kids playing on a school ground. And it was really faint, but we could hear it. And we were looking at one another and we were thinking, it's 1 o'clock in the morning out here. There's no way that this could be going on. There's not any kids around here. And we thought that was really, really odd. And we proceeded to work our way up through the thick brush, which the right flank guys and the point guys, they had already gotten somewhat ahead of us. And at some point there, the guy that was in the point, two guys that were in the point, I recognized his voice. He yelled out kind of a loud voice, and he said, "Catch that son of a buck," or something similar to that. And then there was a lot of confusion. People were sweeping, juggling around with their lights, and I could hear other talking, and the people that it was in our company, you could tell that people were moving fast. And so my partner and I, we tried to move up as best we could, but we probably weren't moving quite as fast as the others. Well, matter of fact, I know we weren't, because they had a pretty good jump on us. And as we were moving up through there, we hear a big splash. Well, then a few minutes, seconds, I don't know, you lose track of time when you're in that situation. We hear another splash. Well, when we finally make our way so far up, there's a creek back there that we didn't know. We had no idea that creek was back there. And one of the guys in the point, he was climbing out of that creek. He said, he ran off and ran away from the flashlight, giving chase to whatever it was he was giving chase to, and he ran off in this creek. And then one of the guys from the right point, he was also climbing out of this creek. And we ran up there and we said, what is happening? What are you doing? And he kept saying, it's a man. It's a man. And we asked him what he saw. And he said, we were making our way up through there just like the rest of you. And there was something that was laying on the ground. He said he jumped up, and he said, all I could make out was that it was a black shape. And I'm saying, well, was he tall? Was he short? Was it thin, fat, whatever? And he says, well, it's about the same size as we are. And so at that point, there's like 6 of us. Well, we get to accusing each other of pranking out there. You guys did this, you guys did. And everybody's saying, no, we did not. And so we kind of grouped together and we make our way back down to where we have parked our trucks. And, I forgot to tell you. So when he said it was a man, it was a man. He also said at one point, he said, it was wearing a backpack. He said a backpack like a soldier, which that kind of didn't make any sense to us. But he said but he did say it was no bigger than we were. We're your average teens. We're like 5'10", 130 pounds, like that. So anyway, we make our way back down to the truck, and we are standing around the truck, and everybody is telling what they experienced up in the woods there. Well, my partner and I, we bring up those voices, and nobody else heard those. We were saying, did anybody else hear that? And they were saying, no. And as we were standing there, the truck, there were 3 pickups, and we were kind of parked in a line with a pickup that was in the middle that no one was standing around. At that point, or thereabouts, something, there's the beating on the like the bed of that truck, and it's like 3 times. It was pretty loud, and we're looking at one another thinking, what is that? And so some of us, we went down that way to check it out. Not a thing. We couldn't find a thing. And so we make our way back up to the other truck, and we're within 3 feet of the other truck. And there's beating on that truck, on the side, like the side bed. We are all standing right there. We're looking at one another. We're saying, there's no way that none of us did it, because we're all standing right here. And it was really hard on that truck. I mean, we could see the truck move. And we really did become frightened. I know I became frightened. And we pretty much scattered, and everybody grabbed whatever pickup they could get in, and we got out of there, because it really freaked us out. And every now and then, my friend that I was with that night, we're still friends. We're going on 50 years friends. And we'll get together sometimes. I still have a lot of contact with him. And sometimes we'll bring this up. And I say, you remember back when we were down there and that beating on a truck happened? And he'd say, yeah, I remember that. And I'd say, what do you think that was? And he'd say, I don't know. He said, I have no idea what that was. And I really don't have any idea either. Was it Sasquatch? I don't know. But I know there are several things that have taken place here. Was it paranormal? I don't know. Kentucky, this area, there's a lot of weird things that happen here. There really are. But I listened to some of these podcasts, like this one, a couple of others that I've heard, and I've heard as I went along and listened to different people's accounts, I have noticed similarities in these accounts. And it makes me think now, nearly 50 years later, that maybe we did come across something. Maybe we did come across a Sasquatch. Maybe it was a juvenile. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's very interesting. Up until that time, it never entered our mind back then about a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. Because we didn't, media wasn't, back then, it wasn't like it is today. So we had limited knowledge. I know I had seen probably the Patterson film. Maybe I was about probably, I don't know, 10 years old, maybe. And when I saw it, I didn't, I didn't quite believe it. Even as a kid like that, I thought, well, that's some guy in a suit. So I didn't quite buy into it. And then as another thing that I mentioned in my comments, we also had knowledge of what is known in this area as the Spotsville Monster. The Spotsville Monster is well documented. You can go online and find it. We live about 25 miles northeast of Spotsville, Kentucky. Spotsville, Kentucky is on the Green River. It's in the Green River bottoms. This area is kind of called the Ohio Valley. It's sort of a triangle between the Green River, the Ohio River. We're not too far from Illinois. We're not too far from the Shawnee National Forest. So the proximity, but Spotsville Monster went on for probably this farm family that had rented this farmhouse down in the bottoms. They were plagued by a creature probably for a year. And it made news here. It made the local news. It made newspapers. And there is a family that just one family that lived there, and it's well documented. You could look it up yourself online, and there's just a lot of odd happenings here. Like I say, I never did know what exactly took place with us. I never did go back to that area myself. Um, I've heard that Sasquatch is territorial. So I just stayed away from there. Now, that's about the extent of my story. I have heard that speculation that people think that the Spotsville Monster perhaps is Dogman, but that's just speculation. That's about the extent of my story. I've related this story. I didn't relate it to until probably about the last year, because I started noticing similarities on these podcasts. But I never told anybody local here. But I know some of these podcasts, people are able to comment on them. I don't know why people monitor these podcasts if they are going to make, I don't know how to word it, comments that are try to discredit someone or try to belittle someone and what they saw, their account. I will say that I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what happened with mine, but I don't care what anybody says. I know what happened, and I'll say that to the day I die.
It's such a fascinating account, and thank you for sharing it, Tommy. Did you guys ever go back to that area after that?
I did not. I've never went back to that area. I have driven past it like on a blacktop road, but to get off and go back in that area, no.
Growing up in that area and going to school and all that good stuff, Did you ever hear other similar stories or, people talking about, weird things in the woods, or is it just a thing that people didn't really talk about it back then?
Excuse me. Well, people aren't too open about that. You have to know someone pretty well before they will tell you uh, those kind of stories here.
Mm,
You have to kind of gain their trust before they'll tell you those kind of things. And then, as with anybody, you have to separate what is somebody is for real and somebody who's just making up a story.
right. The
Um,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask. It's really interesting the part when you hear what sounds like kids in the woods playing on like a playground. Now,
Yes.
did you say playground because just of it sounded like they were having a good time, or was it because you were also hearing things that maybe sounded metallic or kind of like playground equipment?
No, it didn't sound like it didn't sound like playground equipment. It's just the noise of was the noise of children that you would hear if you were passing a school ground that where you would hear children maybe uh, yell out or laugh or giggle or whatever. That is the vocal part.
Was it possible to hear what they were saying, or was it also a thing where it just was very hard to make out actual words?
It was one of those things where you could almost hear it, but
Hmm.
not quite.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost make it out, but not quite.
It's such a weird thing. I've experienced that too in Iowa, and
Really?
it not that it was sound like little kids, but it's that thing that people say where they're like you almost hear mumbling in the woods, and it's like you can almost hear what they're saying, but you can't figure it out, and it's the weirdest thing. It does kind of mess with you because you're like, I wish I knew what they were saying, but it's just very 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 strange stuff. The other interesting thing you brought up was that it it was said that it was wearing a backpack like a soldier. Um,
Yes.
do you have any thoughts about what that could have possibly meant?
I really don't. I mean, I can make some guesses at it. Um, if this was indeed something Sasquatch related, it could be the. I've heard that they have great muscle mass around their shoulder area.
Hmm.
It could have been that. It could have been the bulk of the shoulder area. If it's something paranormal, well, this particular area, we have another county probably about 15 miles to the west of us that many years ago, well, the 40s, late 40s, mid 40s, there was an army base here, uh, an army camp, and this army camp during World War II kept German prisoners. This army base is probably, of course, it's long gone. The base is long gone, or the camp is long gone. But it was about a 36,000 acre uh, installation. Uh, that's just speculation.
Wow, that is a really interesting piece of information that makes you wonder, though. Um, hmm.
Was it something that that would come up quite a bit in like lore of the area? Like there's you'd see the ghosts of the prisoners or anything like that.
Not not to my knowledge. I've never heard of anything like that.
Interesting. You had mentioned in maybe it was I might have taken it heard it differently, but the area that this took place in, was it known for any other weird stuff as well?
Well, just like everything else, when you have a bunch of young kids together, young boys together, yeah, people had stated that they we were back there and this happened and that happened, but like you can pretty well tell when somebody's blowing smoke, and most of them you could laugh them off, really. Uh, there were reports of, like I said, the footsteps. Although the first people I talked about that talked about footsteps, they were credible. Other people talked about it that were just probably copycats. There was a group of guys I knew that claimed to have seen a pink cloud back there. But they were the kind of guys that probably, if there was a pink cloud, they probably made it themselves.
That's funny. Right.
So you kind of don't take that one serious.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But it is interesting when you see these. Well, I'll say it like this: it is interesting when you have an area that has like Bigfoot activity to also look at the reports that have come in from the other side, which would be like the paranormal community or the ghost hunters. And sometimes those reports, you can read those through like the viewpoint of someone who's into Bigfoot, and you can be like, oh, I mean, this is totally not this is not a ghost thing. I mean, those are some Bigfoot activity. They're just looking at it through a different lens. So it can be interesting to kind of do that when you're looking into an area. But did this experience that you had, did it affect you in any way as you continued to grow up with the rest of your life?
Not now. It was something that it was always in the back of my mind, but it never deterred me from going to the woods or anything. This is a hunting culture here. We deer hunt, we coon hunt, we squirrel hunt, whatever. I mean, we're in the woods quite a bit here. It never deterred me from going out, but it was always something that was in the back of my mind. And especially in these later years, as I've heard more and more and more accounts, I'm thinking, hey, maybe there's something to this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's wild the amount of people that are coming out across the board, and I'm not just talking about mine or any of the other podcasts. When you like look at the whole picture and you look at all the podcasts that are out there and the YouTube channels, I mean, there's a massive amount of people that are in this time period, like just all of a sudden deciding let's get everything out there. It's just really interesting to watch. It's even more interesting when you're just trying to keep up with your email, because it's like every day.
You're right. Yeah.
It would blow your mind. It's pretty cool though to be able to talk to people. I'm sure that you've probably thought about that night more than a few times. If you could go back and experience that night over again, would there be anything that you would do differently that night?
Probably not. Probably not. It even though I go out in the woods and stuff, I won't go out by myself here. I have to have somebody with me because I can spook pretty easy. I mean, there are noises and things in the woods at nighttime that that'll spook you. And I should mention also, I forgot that talking about Spotsville. That happening was in 1975, which means I was in high school at the time.
Okay.
So and we didn't take that. Me being a high school student, we didn't really take it seriously. But I take it more seriously now than I did. I forgot about that. I should have included that earlier.
So it's such a weird thing. I mean, you can look at any state and the amount of Bigfoot activity that is out there in especially like the mid to late 70s. It's a lot. I mean, I'm from Iowa, and just the amount that we have up here in Iowa from that time frame is absolutely bonkers. And I'm sure there's probably some, I don't know, maybe there's not a logical explanation for it, really. I mean, which would be fine. Not everything has to have a logical explanation, but it's some wild stuff. Thinking about Bigfoot in general, do you have any theories or ideas about what it is that could be out there when we're talking about Bigfoot in general?
Well, you mean what do I think Bigfoot is?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, Bigfoot shows, if there is such a thing, what I've heard, it shows a lot of physical signs. They're male and female. They raise young. They eat. They leave scat. That kind of thing. They leave physical footprints. They leave tree structures or tree, whatever they call those. So in that, yes, it's physical. But there are also things that people report that seem unnatural. I think Bigfoot is a master of camouflage. I think that people say we were tracking this and it disappeared. And they accredit some of the abilities to unnatural or supernatural or something like that. I'm not so sure about that, although they probably do have some abilities that mankind does not have. I believe Bigfoot to be a flesh and blood creature. Is Bigfoot a ape or something of that source? I don't believe so. Is Bigfoot a man? I don't believe so. I believe they're kind of their own thing, kind of their own species.
Yeah, I agree with you that it is. I think it's one of the last great mysteries that we have. Although there's probably some people out there where it's not a mystery too. We just don't have all the info regarding that yet. But It is, I kind of have a similar thinking, which it is something leaving physical tracks, but it's also able to do some really, really weird stuff that
I agree.
it's outside the realm of our current scientific understanding,
I
at
agree.
least the stuff that the common public is aware of. Now, there might be some scientists out there where they're just starting to kind of get it, but they haven't connected all the dots yet, and who knows what dots will be connected in the future. But each conversation kind of helps connect dots, I think, and that's what half the fun is. But Tommy, it has been just a fun conversation with you. I mean, this is another part of history of the county down here in Kentucky, and thank you for providing this information, another anecdotal story, and who knows what someone might be able to provide after hearing this, and connect some more dots. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me tell my experience. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list: the Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKinsey Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean. I'll see you back next time, listeners. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one if you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost. Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.